Atlanta Road in Griffin, and see a bridge up here. This is McIntosh Road. At this moment, does McIntosh have any significance, any brewing thoughts? Well, I'm about to show you. And I'm going to have to turn up into a gravel drive, and I think I've previously told you how much I love being on a motorcycle on gravel. It's not loose. Okay, this place has seen better days. It's become a dump apparently. As is most history like this. This used to have photographs of what the camp looked at like. This is Camp Stevens. It was a Confederate training camp. Okay. Oh, COVID. You're gonna get COVID out here. More likely to be snake bit, perhaps. Now this is so sad. So this is a berm. It's probably for cannon. And of course on video you don't really get the depth of the slope. And out couple probably city blocks. Camp goes in either direction. There was as a metal detectorist, I would love to find the firing range. You can find more bullets than you can carry. But what I want to show you is down here. All of those stones can have meaning. Okay, so here are some railroad tracks. This is part of the railroad that Franklin Delano Roosevelt built to go to Warm Springs, Georgia. And there are places through here that trees are as big around as the gap of the tracks. But this poor pitiful sign is why we're here. Chief William McIntosh traveled this historic 1820 Indian Trail. That's very oddly worded. Indian Springs, Griffin, Brooks, Stars Mill, Peachtree City, Sharpsburg, Noonan, and Whitesburg. But anyway, this is part of the McIntosh Trail. This, I think, went all the way to the Gulf Coast. And back in the far reaches of this, you can see what looks like an old roadbed. But I am not going back in there now. If I can locate some photographs, I will include them. But our quest continues. Okay, so this is Indian Springs State Park. And the kids down there on the rocks. Those things are slippery and used to bust my butt down there so bad.
Carry on. on, y'all.
Thank you very much. Thanks for what you guys are doing
Where,
here
where'd
too.
you get to? You just got to
I got to the part where they went out and Yahuwah and 200 of his buddies went out to visit him at his plantation to kill him.
Tell him how much they disagree with his decision.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go on in here and I'll tell you the rest of it. It's cooler in here, I think.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, I left the heater and air conditioner on yesterday, so it'll be cooler.
Smells good in here.
But now, when they went to his plantation, this is William McIntosh.
Mm-hmm.
And his father came over here with Oglethorpe when they set up Savannah.
Okay.
And his father was a Scottishman.
Mm-hmm.
And Oglethorpe, was English. So when the English set up their colonies, they used the Scottish to guard them. And it was a one-way trip. They never brought them back.
Right.
So he married a woman, a Creek Indian woman named Sonoya Hidahall.
Wow.
And that's who they named Sonoya, Georgia.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah. And he was a minor chief in the Lower Creeks, which Lower Creeks were the mixed breed creeks. Yahuwah that stood on the rock outside was a major chief in the Upper Creeks, which were the purebred creeks, and they didn't get along. The groups didn't get along very well. But
Which explains why they don't have one giant nation, I guess, right? Just like
he was a brigadier general in the U.S. Army.
Mm-hmm.
He fought the Battle of New Orleans. He fought the War of 1812 and the Red Stick Indian Wars.
Wow.
He was personal friends with a commanding officer named Jackson, Andrew Jackson,
Yeah.
who happened to be the president when he signed this treaty.
Okay.
And so he signed the treaty, then he left, went to his plantation called Akron Bluff over in Cayeta County.
Does anything still remain of that?
Huh?
Does anything still remain of that?
Yes, there's nothing of the plantation. They have a cabin there, like we got this cabin back here.
Right.
They got a cabin there.
Okay.
That's put up there because they burned his plantation, slaughtered his animals, burned his crops, set his slaves free, and murdered and scalped him. So there wasn't nothing left.
Yeah, I understand his wife too wanted to bury him in proper clothes, and they unmarked,
his
naked.
Creek Indian wife was named Peggy, and she laid over his body for 3 days until soldiers got there to bury it.
Wow.
To keep them from burning the body, which was, back in those days, the ultimate insult, was to burn the body.
Wow.
That she laid over his body for 3 days to keep them from burning the body.
Wow.
And now, when he signed that treaty, he was signing it on that bar right there. And Yahuwah was hollering in there, if you sign that treaty, you won't see the new moon. Well, he didn't care because his first cousin was the governor of Georgia. His name was George Troup, whom they named Troup County after.
Right.
And George told him, said, you sign that treaty and I'll have soldiers protect you. So he did. He signed that treaty. And then he left. But now, you probably wondered what happened to those soldiers. Well, the truth is, there was another gentleman visiting Georgia at that time. He was making his grand tour to see the states that he had helped turn into a nation. His name was Lafayette.
Oh yeah.
And being the governor of Georgia, George Troup had to give him all the pomp and circumstance that you would somebody of his caliber back in those days. So, the first night, the guy was a Mason, and the Masonic Lodge of Milledgeville gave him a Masonic ceremony. And now, you can go to that lodge today, and they'll take you upstairs and show you the Cherry City.
Cool.
Yeah. Then the next night, they had a big banquet here for everybody in the county. And then the third day, they had the soldiers marching in review for Lafayette. So, when they got there 3 days late in time to bury McIntosh instead of saving him, you know.
Right.
So, now, what he did when he signed this treaty, he gave away 4,700,000 acres of land that went from Milledgeville to Chattanooga and a big strip of Alabama. And they gave him the like number of acreage west of the Mississippi. And plus, what was it?
$200,000.
$200,000 in gold, which they've never found. So, but anyway, when he went over here to Coweta, they killed him and all that, and that's what makes this hotel famous today. Now we're going to go over on the other side, and I'm going to show you the timeline.
Yes, sir. And I'm just walking around this. I don't know if this is original, but
The flooring is not. Everything else, and upstairs, everything's original. But he'll tell you about it here directly.
Yeah.
But the flooring in the stairway is 1977.
Yeah.
right.
Now this is if you see the Indian mounds in Macon,
Yes.
well, you know those they called them the mound builders. That's our first timeline, and you see how long the line is.
Yep.
Well, we don't know where they came from. They don't know where they came from in Macon either. But we think that they came from Mexico because there's so many Indian mounds around the Gulf Coast that we think that's where they came from. But we do know that these are the ancestors to the Creeks, the Cherokees, the Muskogees, Choctaws, all our local tribes came from these people. These are their ancestors. Now, when you move up to here, this is where McIntosh signed the treaty. Everything from here back, the Indians own. From here forward, they own nothing.
Yeah.
Now, the next thing of any consequence was the Civil War. Lasted 3 days in this county, and only because it rained, they couldn't get across the river.
Yeah.
We
Is that
were the-
Stoneman's raid?
We were the proverbial bump in the Sherman's March to the Sea.
Yeah.
Now Sherman, he was never even in the county. Grant and Lee were never even in the state. The guy that burnt the courthouse down there in Jackson, his name was Oliver Otis Howard. And he went on to start Howard University after the war, which is still going today. And in fact, Miss Harris, our vice president of this country, she graduated from that university. Now we get to the next era. This is what we call the resort era. Goes for 100 years. And we had 10 major resorts here. This was one of the smallest. And they had, the largest one was the Wigwam, and it was right across the street over there in the park area.
Right.
Go in that tree line where they park the cars.
Yes, sir.
It's right, you can find parts of the foundation still there.
Wow.
They had a train that came from Florville train station all the way back down to the middle of the road here and stopped in front of the hotel. 2.5 miles long, shortest track in the country.
Novelty.
They called it the dummy because it only had one track. They had to back up all the way. And so
That's cool.
then we had these several other hotels here and resorts. And when you come to a resort, what they'll do, they'll feed you and they'll give you a place to sleep. And you have to entertain yourself, and that's what the park across the street was for their entertainment. And we run this for 100 years. You got any idea what happened in 1960 to kill this resort era?
I don't.
Six Flags.
Yeah.
Six Flags, Disney World.
That was a
They
shift in.
entertain you. You don't have to entertain yourself.
Oh, yeah.
So people quit coming to the resorts and started going to the amusement
So
parks.
1960 marks our decline.
Yeah, that's when everything went downhill. And then over here on these, you'll see that this is a whole bunch of them burned down, you know.
Right.
And what didn't burn, they tore down. And finally, in 1977, this was the only hotel left standing. And it was barely standing. And so we decided, we took it over in 1977 and decided to bring it back to what it looked like in 1823.
And when you say we, who is that?
We means the
Butts County Historical Society.
Yeah,
Okay, good.
Butts County Historical Society, so.
Great. And who's that funded
I
by?
was fixing to say, I think I
Yeah,
it
it's
on
on
the
your shirt.
now.
Yeah,
Well, presently it's run by Miss Frankie Willis. She's our president.
Okay. Is it funded by the government or?
Yes,
Private.
we are funded by the county.
Well, yeah, we belong to the county. This hotel belongs to the county.
Good.
But they take care of the maintenance of it and all that. We get
Good.
they put a new roof on it this last year.
Right.
And they had to have the prisoners come and they cut the grass and take care of everything.
Very
Yeah,
nice.
they're a little overdue out there. It's getting a little long.
Yeah, I know.
But actually, there was one other hotel left in '77. You know, the last time the Elder burned was '84.
Yeah, 84.
That's right, '84.
Yeah.
But you know, it was down to practically nothing but a restaurant at that time.
Yeah. I've eaten Sunday dinner there before.
Now, this is the ladies' parlor. Now, back in the day, it's a little different than if you go into a hotel today. You just go in the lobby and hang out. Well, you'll check in over there, and that's more or less the bar area too, the first room. But the ladies' parlor and the next room is the men's parlor. They would segregate the men from the ladies
Right.
in those days. And all 10 of the hotels did that in those days. They actually regulated it with that big door there. We've got a doorknob on both ends now because we use that door. But back in the day, it had a doorknob on the ladies' end, but not the men's. The men had to come in out through the porch. And the ladies, if they could put up with the cigar smoke and the cussing and everything, they were welcome over there. But you and I could not come over here.
Right.
And it turned out, as weird as that seems, in 1977 they found out why they did that, because men are really nasty.
They just figured that out.
Yeah, because this room here, I mean, it's painted nicer. If you get over there, you'll see that it's not even, the walls aren't painted. But when they did restore, a coat of paint in here and a little bit of Windex, and they were back in business. Not so next door. Next door, God knows what was on them walls.
Cigar smoke for
Cigar
decades.
smoke in the ceiling. They put
yeah.
6 coats of white paint over there before you couldn't see the smoke anymore. And that's something to be said right there.
Yeah.
And men are a different critter anyway, because up here we've got a piano, we've got nice couches, we've got places you could write a letter, eat your dinner here. Now, if you go over there in a moment, you'll see they had a card table, and that's about it.
So is this furniture
It's
actually
period
from
is
here?
what it is. It's
Okay.
period.
Representing.
Now, the piano, yes.
Wow. I was going to say that's a piano.
Yes, the keys are hidden.
Yeah,
you
we don't have to get there.
Today, and I was thinking, we ought to actually lift that up where people can see the keys.
Yeah.
I think we should.
Yeah.
It's never seen a piano like that.
My great uncle had one, and that's a long story, but he's got one that looks exactly like it, and you can't play it either. But it makes a nice table.
Well, we had a guy come in and tell us, a piano tuner. He told us, he said, said, we could fix it, said, but y'all couldn't afford it.
No,
Right.
I mean, you're way better off buying a new fancy piano.
Exactly.
now
But it's a pretty piece.
Back to the story of the hotels that were around here. We had 10 hotels here. 9 of them burned over the years. And the reason we have these 3, the Calumet House, which was next door on this side of the road, and next door to it was Brian's house. Straight across the road was the Wigwam. The reason these are put up together is they shared the same fate. On the 21st of August, 1921, they all burned to the ground in the middle of the night.
Okay.
It was because of Prohibition, which was a real shame, especially in the Wigwam, because it had the largest ballroom south of Atlanta. I had to go all the way to Florida to see a better one. It had a bowling alley in the basement. And it was, people like me wouldn't be allowed in their restaurant. You're going to have to be fancy to get in there. So it was something special, but it was Prohibition that caused them to burn, because from 1920 to 1933, it was the law of the land, you couldn't sell alcohol. And these 3 hotels didn't get that memo. So somebody around here didn't appreciate it. And next morning, the owners went to Jackson and brought the sheriff down, and he poked around in the ruins and he said, yeah, it stinks of gasoline. It's arson, but y'all played with fire, you see what you got.
Wow.
He didn't even investigate it. So whoever did it got scot-free.
Wow.
Now, getting just a little bit away from the hotel stories, while this hotel is 201 years old, This Bible here is fixing to be 300 years old, 1726.
Wow.
It was brought over from Scotland in the Spencer family. And the last of the Mohicans of the Spencers, it was a Mrs. Spencer, I'm sorry I don't know her first name, but she donated to the county on the condition that it stay in a glass box like that because she was afraid it was going to wind up in the yard sale when she passed because she had no heirs. Well, she was 94 years old when she did that, and she visited that thing in here regularly for the next 10 years. She lived to be 104. So it's going to be here from now on as long as this museum's here. Now this is a picture, a painting of this hotel as it would have looked when it was on the stage lines. You know, like I was telling you earlier,
Yeah.
it was smart to put this here because it was right at the crossroads of 7 different stage lines. If you're going to go completely across the state of Georgia, no matter where you're going or where you're coming from, you're going to wind up here. And plus it had the springs over there.
It's kind of like Hartsfield now. If you're going anywhere, you have a layover.
Exactly. I guess it was early Hartsville. I hadn't thought of that, but that's true. But they put, there's 12 rooms to rent upstairs, and they had an annex building out back, and it made 40 rooms altogether that they could rent. They had a huge stable. They would rent out horses, or they would board your horse, and they had horses in there for swapping out for the stages. And actually, they had a full-time blacksmith that worked for the hotel, and they had a kitchen out back for their restaurant. So they made money hand over fist. Actually, the hotel owned 2 stage coaches, and twice a week they'd send one north and one south. One would go to Covington, the other one would go to Forsyth to bring people back here just to visit the park across the road.
Limo service.
Indeed. So it was a pretty good deal. Now these 2 hotels, they're the last 2 standing besides this one. The Foy Hotel was straight across the road, and it burned in 1956. It was a kitchen fire, nothing nefarious about that, but it was one of the last of the Mohicans. Now the Elder Hotel's a different story. It burned twice. First time's 1900 and last time's 1984. Both times is arson. But the first time really wasn't a bad idea to burn it, and the owners might have burned it, because it was a losing hotel. And they built it bigger and better than ever before. I mean, it's just, you can see it's a beautiful
massive,
hotel. Yes. And I'll tell you where it actually was. If you go past the park, the very next driveway, you'll see two stone pillars this tall.
Yeah.
On either side of the driveway. That's where it was.
Oh.
Actually, his daughter owns that property now. But anyway, the first time it burned, they built it bigger and better. And the smartest thing they did was they brought down Miss Texas Elder. And she's a pretty thing. She really had a lot of business sense. She turned that place around. It was a losing hotel. As you can see, all the menu from the restaurant they had and brochures. She turned that place into one of the most profitable hotels of this area.
Some marketing.
Yeah, she knew her business, but she wasn't the Southern Belle you think of the late 1800s and early 1900s. She smoked cigars, she drank whiskey, cussed like a sailor, and had a gambling problem. But other than that, she's kind of my kind of girl, I reckon.
Yeah.
But straight across the road, we had a year-round park over there. It had rides, and it had a beautiful swimming pool. There's the pool. It was a great big thing.
Wow.
And then they had 2 bowling alleys, this miniature thing and a full-size one. And they had skating rink. There's some skates and skating rink. And it ran until the mid-1960s, thereabouts. And like Jimmy said, it couldn't keep up with Six Flags and stuff. It was really, really the Dayton venue for this area. Mm-hmm. People came from all over, but couldn't keep up with the modern stuff.
Yeah, what do you call it? Paradigm shift, you know.
There you go.
Things change, unfortunately, for the worse sometimes.
Now, just the walls and the windows and everything. If you see a perfect window,
it's been replaced. Yes.
But I think these are beautiful.
Yeah, me too.
And you're looking through something that's been looked through for 201 years. So it's, I really love these old things, and I always kid people about this one's been cracked, and they probably would have replaced it, but somebody did scratch 1842 and put his initials there.
Yeah.
So we keep that for evidence in case we can catch him. The last thing in this room, really, I mean, you can see some of this fancy handwriting they had back in the day, and they've got
very cool.
Yeah, there's
floor,
Oh, you know, I never had pretty handwriting. I can write in cursive.
And you know, sometimes the schools got away from teaching.
But they
cursive.
have. I can write cursive, but you can't read it. But this is the post office, and it was the post office for Indian Springs until the mid-1970s, believe it or not.
Wow.
So they got the painting of that store at the crossroad, and the reason for that is there were 4 general stores in Indian Springs, and you got this for a year. You could have it for a calendar year, and it had to be somehow or another, I don't know the process, but it had to be moved to another store. Well, it was a thankless and payless job. You had this in your store. Every few days you get a big bag of mail, and you got to sort it.
Right.
But it didn't pay anything. But if you had that in your store, people had to get to your store and get their mail.
Right.
So this thing sold a lot of candy bars.
Right. Yeah, I see that.
If, by the way, if you have any questions along the way, just pop them out.
Sure.
We'll go on over to the men's parlor, and I hope your shots are up to date.
Yeah, I just went to the Philippines. I'm pretty
Oh, you're
well. I'm
good.
vaxxed up. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. How you doing?
Hey, good, how are you?
I'm doing great. You want to just join?
This thing here.
Are you going to pour some whiskey you going to pour me some whiskey for the experience? No.
No, but I do own the distillery in town. But you can tell, gentlemen's pursuits haven't changed very much over the years, you know. Hey, y'all come on in.
Howdy.
We're just getting started.
All right.
I was telling him, gentlemen's pursuits haven't changed very much over the years. And you can see these cards, they got no letters, they got no numbers. Because back in those days, they had no public education. Most people couldn't read right anyway.
Right.
And the bad part is that we have it today and they still can't read and write. But now this is what he used when he was here. It's called a Tower flintlock pistol.
Wow.
That's 2 more.
Oh, okay. Bring them on in.
Yes, sir.
All right. Now this is the 1820 model of a Tower flintlock pistol. This is what McIntosh used. Used a piece of flint rock to hit the piece of steel, and if you're lucky, it'll actually go off, and it shot this 69 caliber ball. That thing hit you, you wasn't coming. But it only had one shot, and you had to take about 5 minutes to load it through the barrel. So it's best to use it for what it was better used for. Club. See how heavy it is? I mean, it makes a whole lot better club than it did a pistol. You know. Yeah, go pass it around. Let everybody see how heavy that thing is. That thing is. It's pretty heavy. And you think that the ornament on the end of the barrel, on the end of the stock, is really there for a club. It's not decoration like people think it is. They think
Solid
that might be
piece.
decoration. But now let me show you what this hotel looked like when we first got it. In 1977, this is what this hotel looked like. And there was as much kudzu inside as there was outside. And you'll notice these floors here, were replaced in 1977 because the kudzu eat them up. They just eat up the floors in here. So we replaced the kudzu, floors, and the staircase. Because we had to replace the staircase because you see that piano next door? It took 9 of us to get it down the steps. And the steps, the original steps was only half that wide. So, but now, we decided we was going to put it on the National Register. Or they decided, I didn't have anything to do with it. But this is what it looks like underneath. This rock here comes to about right here on there. And the inspector looks at it and he says, this isn't permanent. We told him it's been here 150 years. He said, well, to be on the National Register, you've got to put in cement block foundation and post and beam holding up the floor. So in order to do that, we had to jack up the whole hotel. And in that process, the chimneys fell off. So from this point, all the way back around to where it is today, took us 7.5 years. And we did it with grants and donations and hundreds of volunteers. And I told you the Civil War only lasted 3 days in this county. But I got 3 cases of Civil War stuff because we got so many people in the Historical Society they favor the Civil War and they want to put this stuff out here. So we have to make room for them. But you'll notice this is Oliver Otis Howard. This is the guy that burnt the courthouse in Jackson. He's known as a Christian general. But, like I was telling y'all, he went on after the war to found Howard University, which is still going today. And in fact, the vice president of our country, Miss Harris, graduated from there. And so over here we've got Confederate money, and you'll notice the smaller bills up on the end here, they're changed because only Virginia and North Carolina had coin presses and could make coins. The rest of the states had to make their change out of paper. They don't tell you that in school, but that's the way it is. And now, here's some of the bullets that we find outside. These are 58 caliber mini balls. And they are, they're not round and all that. People ask me why they call them mini balls, because the reason they call them mini balls is because the man that invented them was named French, and he was in Napoleon's army back during the Napoleon era. Now, these cannonballs, we don't know which one of these cannons it came from, but we know it came from one of them because these were the only 3 in the county that shot that size ball. So we know that's where they came from. And you can find coins around here. Now, we have a guy with a metal detector that checks around here, and he finds all kinds of coins. Usually they're Indian head pennies with 1860 dates on them. Now, over here on this side, we've got Confederate uniforms. And if you shot the cannon, you wore the red hat. If you rode the horses, it was yellow, and the rest of you just had to walk. So, right here we've got a English contract rifle, 69 caliber, and up here we've got an Enfield, 58 caliber Enfield rifle. That's a musketoon, and they had musketoons. They had 2-band Enfields and 3-band Enfields, and you'll notice these are Confederate uniforms. We couldn't find any Yankee uniforms, so we had to get G.I. Joe over here in a Yankee uniform. But now, these are this is a sword bayonet pistol that they used during the Civil War. And this is the Great Seal of the Confederacy. And you'll notice it could be anywhere the U.S. or Confederacy because they both pretty close to each other. Now this thing here is one of the controversial things in this room. It's called a spittoon. And when you tell the kids that, they all gross out, you know. Oh, gross, you know, but they don't remember what a lot of us remember. Our grandparents and all, or some of us even, dipped snuff and chewed tobacco. And they had to spit in that thing. And I remember going to the barbershops, I always had an old brass one in there. And usually somebody had already kicked it over before you got there. But now, over here, this saddle here, the U.S. Army used this saddle from the Mexican War up to 1947, the end of the Second World War. And then they gave it to the National Guard. And then we had this thing called Afghanistan. And the 10th Special Force Division was mounted on horses. And they had to go to the National Guard to get their saddles back so that they could mount them on the guard up there on them.
That's cool.
But, I think they kept them this time. Now, one of the reasons that the women did not come in here was that door right there. You see how large it is? Well, when the weather would get nasty, they'll bring their horses in. And that's why this room was such a lucky room in here. It took us weeks to clean the walls. It took us months. That's 6 coats of white paint to cover that smoke and stuff that was up there. Yeah. And like he said in the, when he was talking about the room next door, men are nasty. But now, let me show you the other room off to the side here. This room was never actually in the hotel. It was a little building by itself right outside, because this is the kitchen. And they used fireplaces, and they would burn down quite often, so they didn't want to burn the hotel down, so they kept everything out away from it. Now, you go to a restaurant today, they give you a menu, you can pretty well choose and pick what you like. Back in those days, they put the menu on the wall. If you liked it, okay. If you didn't, go to another hotel, because they didn't change the menu. Whatever they had there, that's what you got. But that wasn't as backwards as you think it was. Look, they had waffles. And these things here are called bee cells. And they put them over a beehive, pick it up and move it. I wouldn't want to do it. But. Now, let me show you how they clean their floors here. They use what we call a corn husk mop. And they'd fill it full of corn husks, mop their floors, then they'd replace all the corn husks. We got the same thing today. They call it a Swifter.
Something has never changed.
And now this over here, you can see, it clearly tells you these are arms. But when you get the school kids in here, you'll ask them, what are these? You know? Oh yeah, they're doorstops. But we don't argue with them, because we're using two of them upstairs for doorstops. And all right, now when we go upstairs, you'll get to see the ghost room. We got our own ghost, and the artifact room. Before we leave this room, let me show you what's holding the building up. This thing here